Okay, guys, this is a quick tutorial in Reaper on how I quantize a song to get it set up for drum programming. I am using Reaper. If anybody's interested, I'm using the Reborn theme. I like it pretty well. This is just the way I do it. There may be a much easier way, more efficient way, or whatever. I've tried using the dynamic split thing that's supposed to kind of do this, but I just never can get it to work right. So this is just more straightforward and works for me. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is insert a new track, then insert a media file, which will be the song that you're going to quantize. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the BPM, but I'm setting it at half of the BPM that it's going to be because I'm going to split this into chunks, and I'm going to split on the 2 and the 4 of each beat. Of each measure. So this is going to be half of the BPM that it's going to be in the end. And all you do is click play, and then if you notice this changes to tap, just tap on the 2 and 4, and then it'll tell you what the BPM is. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, it's 56. The next thing I'm going to do is, what I'm going to do first is turn grids off for the time being. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a marker at the 2 and the 4 beat of each measure. And the way to do that is you start the song playing and you tap the M key, M as in marker, keeping up with the 2 and the 4 beat. And it'll drop a marker at each spot. And then that's where we're going to split it. Now I'm not going to do this entire song because it is a little bit time consuming, but I'm only going to do like the first 25 seconds here, and that should give you a good idea of of the process. So I'm going to go ahead and drop these markers. So I've dropped a marker every place except here at the beginning because I was starting on the 2, so I need to add a marker here. But you'll notice that this one isn't dead on. It's hard to be exact just hitting the keyboard, so you may have to go back in and tweak some of these to hit the transients. Most of the time you can get by with not doing that, but if you want it very precise, it's worth the time to do it. And of course you have to do this on the entire song, but okay, so now what I want to do is put the very first marker in to make the first split, and the way I do that, make sure snap to grid is on, and then left click and drag a selection. Hold the shift key down and left click with the mouse again, and you can move this over. Move the playhead to that position and hit the M key again, and now you have a marker for that. And you can get rid of this. The numbers up here really don't matter. You can go back in and change these, the numbers, or you can add them, add a label if you want to, so on. But we're going to get rid of these markers in a minute anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay. So now that we have a marker on every 2 and 4, I want to go and I want to split the track at each marker. In Reaper, the right and left bracket keys jump between markers. Okay, so what you want to do, start from the beginning, hit the right bracket key, then hit the S key for split, right bracket, S, and so on. Now, I programmed a hotkey to do this. It does it all with just one keystroke. It saves a little bit of time. All right. So now we have this split into that many pieces. Since we're not going to do the whole song, I'm going to select the rest of the song and delete it because we're not going to be messing with that. This part here is just silence, and we don't really need that either, so go ahead and get rid of that. Now, I should say that this works really well for songs that are in 4/4. It gets a little trickier if you have time changes, especially if they have 8th note or 16 note measures. It can get a little funky, but it works great for this. And even if you have time changes, if there's a 3/4 measure in there, it really doesn't screw you up too bad. Okay, so we have the splits all done. Now we're finished with the markers. So we can left click, drag this selection, and go to this area right here and right click and remove all markers. Okay. So the next thing is we are ready to quantize, and I've got the grids turned off now, just because it's a little bit, it's busy to look at, and you don't have to have this on. It still knows where the grid is, even though it's not turned on. So what you want to do is select everything by right clicking and dragging, and then again right click on any of these pieces, go to item processing and quantize item to grid position, or positions to grid. I normally just have this selected. Every split, where there's a split, when you play back, you'll hear a little bit of a noise at each split. And for learning, bass and guitar parts and the drums and everything, that's not an issue. If it's a really quiet part and you want to preserve that, you can extend the starts to overlap, and it does a crossfade, so it makes that little noise a little bit less. But for this kind of thing, it's not necessary. I'll leave this on quarter notes. To me, it seems like it should be half notes, but I think my logic is wrong there for some reason. It's something obvious I'm missing, but anyway, it does work on quarter notes, and that's how I leave it. So then I just say process. Okay, now it doesn't look like much has changed, but what has happened now is all these pieces have been stretched or compressed, whatever's been needed to fit on the grid. And if we turn the grid back on, we can see that these are now exactly on the grid. So and if you turn the metronome on, you can hear that also. Okay, So when we get to doing the drums, we'll have the nice grid layout, and everything is going to line up. Okay, the next thing to do, we still have all this selected, and the one thing I should point out, after you quantize, you select everything, say quantize, and it does this. A lot of times, it will tuck one of these pieces underneath the one in front of it or the one after it. I don't know why it does that, but it does it just about every time. And the only way to figure out where that's happening is to play through the song. So once you've done all the splits and quantized it, then go back and listen to the entire song. And a lot of times you can see that something is messed up. You can't really see it here as well as I was hoping, but sometimes if there's a part tucked back behind, you can actually see, like that. You can see that there's two waveforms there. Sometimes it's easy to see, sometimes almost impossible to see. Also, sometimes this little triangle here will look a little bit different. The color will be a little bit different if there's two overlapped. And also the other thing that it does sometimes is it will stretch a piece to be twice as long as it should be. And when you're listening back, this is what you'll hear. So you know that that's not right. So you have to go in here and make it the right size. And you do pretty much have to look into that every time. I don't know why it does that, but it does. It's irritating. But so now you want to select everything, right click again, and go down to glue items. Select glue items, and what that does is it makes it now one piece. So you don't have to worry about shuffling pieces or getting stuff messed up. It's all one piece. Okay, the last thing to do is we want the grid to be accurate now. We did it at half BPM, so now we're going to do it the full. So change that to 112. And normally I have a one measure count in. You may need two depending on the song, but normally one is fine. So this is the 2 of the first measure, so I'm actually going to put it on the 2 of the second measure. And again, with the metronome on, you can hear the count in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then. Okay. So that is pretty much it. You have the song quantized now to the grid. You have the correct BPM set. You have it set for the count in, and now you're ready to add your next track, which will be your drum track, and start the programming. And that's going to be the next video. So I hope this was helpful. I know it was kind of fast, but if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. You can message me, or you can you can post underneath this. So anyway, so that's the first one in this series, and I hope it was helpful. Thanks.